अस्सलाम वालेकुम स्टूडेंट्स। आज का जो हमारा टॉपिक है 12th क्लास के लिए बिजनेस स्टडीज से हमने लिया है, दैट इज़ फंक्शंस ऑफ सेबी, सिक्योरिटीज़ एंड एक्सचेंज बोर्ड ऑफ इंडिया। तो आज हम इन्हीं इसकी फंक्शंस को जानने की कोशिश करेंगे, समझने की कोशिश करेंगे और इसका ऑर्गेनाइजेशनल जो स्ट्रक्चर है उसके बारे में बात करेंगे। First one, let we start. The functions of SEBI can be divided into three parts. That is regulatory functions, development functions, and protective functions. First, we discuss regulatory functions. Regulatory functions of SEBI are, that is first one, that is registration of brokers and agents. It registers brokers, sub-brokers, transfer agents, merchant banks, etc. Second one, that is notification of rules and regulations. It notifies rules and regulations for the smooth functioning of all intermediaries in the securities market. Third one, that is levying of fees. It levies fees, penalties, and other charges for contravening its directions and orders. Fourth one, that is regulating of investment schemes. It registers and regulates collective investment schemes and mutual funds. Sixth one, that is prohibits unfair trade practices. SEBI prohibits fraudulent and unfair trade practices. Seventh one, that is inspection and inquiries. It undertakes inspection and conducts inquiries and audit of stock exchange. Eighth, performing and exercising powers. It performs and exercises such powers under Securities Contracts Regulation Act 1956 as have been delegated to it by the Government of India. ये तो था रेगुलेटरी फंक्शंस। अब हम जाएंगे दूसरा जो इसका है पार्ट इसकी फंक्शंस का, दैट इज़ डेवलपमेंट फंक्शंस। डेवलपमेंट में फंक्शंस में पहले आ जाता है ट्रेनिंग टू इंटरमीडियरीज। इट प्रमोट्स ट्रेनिंग ऑफ इंटरमीडियरीज ऑफ द सिक्योरिटीज़। इसका जो दूसरा है पार्ट है, दैट इज़ प्रमोशन ऑफ अनफेयर ट्रेड। इट प्रमोट्स फेयर ट्रेड प्रैक्टिसेस बाय मेकिंग अंडरराइटिंग ऑप्शनल। इस जो तीसरा है, दैट इज़ रिसर्च। It publishes information useful to all market participants for conducting research. तो जो अब इसकी लास्ट फंक्शन है, दैट इज़ द थर्ड फंक्शन, दैट इज़ प्रोटेक्टिव फंक्शंस। प्रोटेक्टिव फंक्शंस में पहले आ जाता है प्रिवेंट्स इनसाइडर ट्रेडिंग। It does so by prohibiting insiders such as directors, promoters, etc. to make profit through trading of securities using confidential price sensitive information. इसका जो दूसरा है फंक्शन, that is prohibits fraudulent and unfair trade practices. It prohibits fraudulent and unfair trade practices in the security market such as price rigging and sale or purchase of securities through misleading statements. Third one, that is promotes fair practices. It promotes fair practices and code of conduct in the securities market. That is, it looks after the interests of the debenture holders in terms of any midterm revision of interest rates, etc. Last one, that is educates investors. It educates the investors through campaigns. These are the functions of SEBI. Now we go for the organizational structure of SEBI. Since SEBI is a statutory body, the range and scope of its activities have considerably increased. Thus, in order to ensure more careful, coordinated, and intensive attention to each activity, it has divided them into five operational departments headed by an executive director. Regional offices have been opened at Delhi, Chennai, and Kolkata to attend to the investor complaints and to communicate with the issuers, intermediaries, and stock exchanges in the concerned region. Two advisory committees, namely the Primary Market Advisory Committee and the Secondary Market Advisory Committee, have been formed by SEBI. These committees comprise of the market players, the eminent persons in the capital market, and the investors associations recognized by the SEBI. These committees are not statutory in nature and SEBI is not bound to follow their advice. Following are the main objectives of the committee. First one, that is to advise SEBI on matters related to the development of primary markets in India. Second one, that is to advise SEBI on issues related to the development and regulation of the secondary market in India. Third one, that is to advise the board on issues related to the regulation of intermediaries for protecting the interest of the investors in the primary market. Fourth one, to advise SEBI to reveal the necessary requirements for companies. Fifth one and the last one, that is to advise the board for modification and legal framework for introducing simplification and transparency in the primary market. Here is a case study of SEBI few years ago. There were many malpractices and unfair trading practices like price rigging, unofficial premium on new shares, etc. All these had eroded investors' confidence and multiplied their grievances. To overcome these, Government of India decided to set up a separate regulatory body for this purpose. Name the separate body set up by Government of India, that is SEBI. What are the two objectives of it? The two objectives are to guide, educate, and to protect the rights of interest and interests of the investors. And the second, to prevent malpractices. Thanks.